There have been 266 popes in the history of the Catholic Church. 266 men who have led, served, and shaped not only a religion but the fate of entire civilizations. What if I told you that one single line of leadership has stretched, unbroken, for nearly 2,000 years? From a fisherman in Galilee, to a man in white living in Vatican City today. This is the story of every pope, from St. Peter to Pope Francis, a journey filled with faith, power, trials, and transformation. Let's walk through the lives of the popes of the Catholic Church, one of the longest-running leadership chains in human history. It's a story not only of spiritual guidance but also of world-shaping influence. From the early persecutions to the dramatic political struggles and the Church's eventual global reach, the history of the popes offers a unique window into the past and present of the Catholic faith. The Catholic Church teaches that St. Peter was the first pope, chosen by Jesus himself. A humble fisherman, Peter was not looking for power, he was a follower, a man who believed in something greater. But when Jesus said to him, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church," Peter became the first bishop of Rome, and the first pope. Peter was not a man of wealth or status. He wasn't an emperor. He was a simple man, full of faith. He faced immense challenges, including being martyred under Emperor Nero's cruel persecution of Christians around 64 AD. He chose to die upside down on the cross, as he didn't feel worthy to die the same way as Jesus. His death symbolized the courage of the early Christian community, unwilling to renounce their faith, even in the face of brutal execution. But Peter's death did not mark the end. The line of popes had only just begun. Pope Linus succeeded Peter, but his time was brief. Pope Anacletus and Pope Clement I followed, and though their names may not be familiar, they each served during times of persecution. Early Christianity was a dangerous path, but these popes laid the foundation of the Church, enduring hardships that few could imagine. These popes held on to the Christian message even when it seemed like the entire world was against them. As the years passed, persecution continued. Pope Sixtus II and Pope Fabian were both martyred, reminding Christians everywhere of the price of faith. Despite the bloodshed, the Church didn't waver. Pope Calixtus I, too, was a martyr for his beliefs. These popes were not just leaders but symbols of the strength and resilience of Christianity. But things began to change with Pope Sylvester, when Emperor Constantine legalized Christianity in 313 AD. For the first time, the Church could grow openly, without the shadow of fear. Constantine's Edict of Milan granted tolerance for Christians, marking the beginning of a new era for the Church. Christianity was no longer the enemy of the Roman Empire, it was about to become its cornerstone. The Church, under Sylvester's guidance, began to establish its first real infrastructure, as it became recognized as a central institution. As the Roman Empire began to fade, the Church became the center of stability in Europe. The popes not only led spiritually but also assumed political influence. By the time Pope Leo I, Leo the Great, came to power in the 5th century, the papacy had already begun to grow in stature. Pope Leo I is one of the most famous early popes. His influence spread far beyond the walls of the Vatican. When Attila the Hun, the fearsome barbarian, threatened Rome, it was Leo who met him face to face. Some say it was Leo's mere presence, and the grace in his words, that turned Attila away, saving the city from destruction. Leo became a symbol of the Church's authority and resilience, showing the world that the Church was a force to be reckoned with, even in the face of unimaginable danger. Then came Pope Gregory I, known as Gregory the Great. He didn't just manage the Church, he reformed it. Gregory was a man of action. He sent missionaries across Europe, making sure that Christianity reached even the remotest corners of the continent. His Gregorian chant became one of the most important contributions to Christian worship, and his reforms shaped the Church for centuries. Gregory's reforms also included strengthening the authority of the Pope in spiritual matters, thus solidifying the Pope's role as not just a religious leader but a political one. But the popes also faced dark times. In the 8th century, Pope Stephen II had to deal with the threat of the Lombards, a Germanic tribe that was threatening the papal territories. Stephen appealed to Pepin the Short, a powerful king, to help protect the church. This marked the beginning of the Papal States, the territories controlled by the popes, and began a long and complicated relationship between the church and the European monarchs. This period marked the beginning of the church's political rise as it became involved in the governance of both religious and secular matters. One of the strangest chapters of papal history was the Cadaver Synod, a court case in 897 where Pope Stephen VI had the body of his predecessor, Pope Formosus, exhumed and put on trial. The body was found guilty and stripped of its papal titles. It's a bizarre and eerie moment in church history, but it shows the power struggle within the church even after death. Through all this turmoil, the papacy survived. The Dark Ages tested the church's strength, but its influence continued to grow. And with it, the popes began to wield political power over vast swathes of Europe. The medieval period was filled with change, including a rise in conflict that the church could not ignore. One of the most dramatic chapters was the Crusades. Pope Urban II shocked the world in 1095. He called all Christians to take back the Holy Land from Muslim rule. This launched the First Crusade, which not only involved a massive military campaign but also raised questions of faith, morality, and justice that continue to echo throughout history. The Crusades would continue for centuries, drawing warriors from all parts of Europe, but also dividing the Christian world. Some popes led these campaigns, but not all agreed with them. Pope Gregory VII famously fought the Holy Roman Emperors, claiming that only the Pope had the right to appoint bishops and leaders, sparking a monumental battle for church independence. The period was marked by intense political battles between the papacy and secular rulers, creating tension between the moral authority of the church and the political ambitions of kings and emperors. Then came Pope Innocent III, who ruled like a king himself. He controlled not only the church but also the politics of Europe. Innocent used the excommunication of monarchs as a political tool, asserting the power of the church over secular authority. During the Renaissance, art, science, and learning exploded, and the church took full advantage of this cultural renaissance. Popes like Pope Julius II became patrons of the arts, commissioning works from the likes of Michelangelo, Raphael, and Botticelli. Julius famously hired Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel, a masterpiece that still draws millions to the Vatican each year. But alongside the artistic flourishing came increasing corruption and scandals. Pope Leo X, from the famous Medici family, was one of the most notorious popes of this period. He was known for his lavish spending and his role in fueling the Protestant Reformation with his sale of indulgences. The Protestant Reformation, led by Martin Luther in 1517, triggered one of the most significant splits in Christianity. Luther's 95 Theses criticized the Church's practices, particularly the sale of indulgences. The Reformation caused deep divisions within the Church, and new Christian denominations, such as Lutheranism and Calvinism, began to spread across Europe. The Catholic Church had to adapt. Pope Paul III called the Council of Trent, 1545 to 1563, which addressed the challenges brought on by the Protestant Reformation. This council reaffirmed Catholic doctrines and reformed many aspects of church practice. It was a powerful response, but it didn't stop the political upheaval. Napoleon Bonaparte, the Emperor of France, was one of the most significant figures who challenged the papacy. In 1809, he captured Pope Pius VII, holding him prisoner in France. This was the beginning of a time when the papacy would lose much of its territorial power, the Papal States were shrinking, and the papacy's influence in world politics was waning. Napoleon's actions, while aimed at weakening the Church, also began to highlight the Church's spiritual resilience. Despite political setbacks, the popes continued to lead millions of Catholics around the world, even without temporal power. Despite this loss, the spiritual influence of the Church remained strong, and popes like Pope Leo XIII fought to protect the faith in the modern age, facing industrialization, secularism, and modern philosophies. Pope Leo XIII was instrumental in updating the Church's teachings, particularly concerning social justice and the role of workers in the changing industrial landscape. His encyclical Rerum Novarum became a foundational text for modern Catholic social teaching. By the 19th century, the papacy was deeply involved in the politics of modern European states, even though the papal states were lost. The Church's relationship with the world was evolving, from a powerful political force to a spiritual beacon. The 20th century gave us some of the most famous popes in history. Pope Pius XII, during World War II, faced enormous pressure. His role in saving Jews from the Holocaust is still debated. Some say he didn't do enough. Others argue that he helped in secret. Despite the controversy, Pius XII's reign marked a period of significant global influence for the Church. Then came Pope John XXII, who shocked the world by calling Vatican II a major council that modernized the Church. He made the Church more open to the modern world, allowing for reforms in the liturgy, outreach to other Christian denominations, and a greater focus on social justice. His papacy was characterized by an open-hearted compassion that earned him the title, Good Pope John. Vatican II reshaped Catholicism, allowing it to engage more directly with the modern world and making the Church more accessible to lay people. Next, Pope Paul VI continued those changes, focusing on global outreach and defending the Church's teachings in an increasingly secular world. He also oversaw the final implementation of the changes brought by Vatican II. Pope John Paul I came after. But tragically, he passed away just 33 days into his papacy. His sudden death left the Church mourning, but it quickly paved the way for Pope John Paul II. Pope John Paul II, the first non-Italian pope in over 400 years, was a force of nature. Born in Poland, he survived an assassination attempt and became a symbol of resistance against communism. His role in the fall of the Soviet Union and the liberation of Eastern Europe cannot be overstated. He is remembered for his travels around the world, reaching millions with his message of hope, love, and forgiveness. His long papacy, 1978 to 2005, remains one of the most transformative in Church history. After him came Pope Benedict XVI, a theologian and scholar. His papacy, marked by intellectual rigor, was contrasted by his resignation in 2013, the first in over 600 years. His decision to step down, citing health concerns, changed the course of papal history. And now, we have Pope Francis. The first pope from South America, the first Jesuit pope, and a man who lives humbly, often speaking about mercy, the poor, and the environment. His papacy is characterized by his emphasis on compassion and his focus on interfaith dialogue. Pope Francis has been a strong advocate for the marginalized and has challenged the Church to remain humble in a world full of political and social divisions. And now, we find ourselves at a crossroads. Pope Francis, the 266th Pope, has passed away. His papacy was defined by his humility, focus on mercy, and efforts to modernize the Church. He reached out to the poor, embraced the refugee crisis, and called for action on climate change. His legacy will live on in the many reforms he championed. But what happens next? The question now looms over the Vatican: who will step into his shoes? Will the Church continue down the path of compassion, mercy, and dialogue that Pope Francis embraced? Or will the next pope return to more traditional practices and ideologies? The future of the papacy is uncertain, and the Church stands at a defining moment in its history. Pope Francis has left the Church in a position of strength, but also vulnerability, as new challenges rise in a rapidly changing world. As we reflect on his papacy and look ahead, we must consider, what direction will the Church take now? 266 popes. From prison cells to palaces. From martyrs to monarchs. From teachers to world leaders. Each one different. Each one flawed. But each one carried the same role, the Bishop of Rome, the shepherd of the Catholic Church. No matter your faith, the story of the popes is the story of history itself, of power, of spirit, of survival. And as the world changes, that white robe still walks the halls of the Vatican, reminding us that leadership, true leadership, is a journey through storms, not just sunshine. If you're enjoying this journey through the history of the popes, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think the next pope will bring to the church?